Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Mullen?
There was no closed session, so there's nothing to report.
Thank you. With that, we'll go to our consent calendar, which are items 3 through 11. Do we have any public?
No public.
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
And I just want to clarify before we go to our general items that item 13 has been removed from the agenda by staff. So with that, we'll go to item 14, which is a rejection of bids and consideration of the pure water monitoring.
Number 12.
12, pure water monitoring well contract. And Lindsay, you're up.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, Lindsay Leahy, here tonight to discuss item number 12, Pure Water Oceanside Monitoring Wells Contract Award. Tonight, staff recommends rejecting all bids for the construction of Pure Water Oceanside Monitoring Wells contract, authorize the city engineer to execute a change order number 1 in the amount of $758,000 to NorCal Pump and Well Drilling for the Pure Water Monitoring Well Drilling, for a total contract value of $4,428,068, and authorize the city engineer to execute change orders up to a total of 10% of the revised contract value. As a reminder, Pure Water Oceanside will be injecting advanced treated water into the groundwater aquifer, which will increase our local water supply and increase the quality and the quantity of the water in that aquifer. This keeps our aquifer healthy and it helps to prevent any subsidence and overdrafting. Tonight's item is for Phase 2D, which is the 5th of the 5 construction contracts for monitoring wells. Pure Water Oceanside, the treatment plant for Pure Water Oceanside is being constructed at our San Luis Rey Water Reclamation Facility off of North River Road, with the pipelines being constructed down North River Road, Douglas, and Paula to the injection wells, where we will have up to 3 injection wells, shown in red, and 3 monitoring wells shown with the green and white circles. The monitoring wells are located downstream of the injection wells and will be used to track the flow of the advanced purified water being injected into the aquifer. These wells are required by our permit and allow us to ensure that the water that's being injected into the aquifer stays within that aquifer within a minimum amount of time. Each monitoring well location will have 2 separate wells, an upper well and a lower well. And the upper well will be drilled to about 85 feet below the ground, with the lower well being drilled to about 175 feet below ground. As you've seen, we've had an extensive outreach campaign for Pure Water Oceanside, which won the Excellence in Public Information and Communications Award. And with that, since we've been in construction the last few months, we have been putting out construction updates, as well as have an interactive construction map where residents can go to our purewateroceanside.org for updates and see where construction is, where road closures are, etc. This project began in December of 2015 through April of 2017, where staff completed water reuse master plans and feasibility studies to analyze which local water supply projects were best for the city. In April of 2018, a professional services agreement was awarded to begin design of Pure Water Oceanside. In December of 2018, Planning Commission approved the environmental documents and approved a conditional use permit for the project. December of 2019 to September of 2020, Council has awarded the first 4 construction contracts for this project. September 2nd of 2020, staff advertised the monitoring wells contract for bid. And on October 14th, staff opened bid with a public bid opening for the monitoring wells contract. One bid was received and opened on October 14th, received by Yellow Jacket Drilling Services for $827,250, which was below the engineer's estimate of $937,500. There were 4 other contractors who attended this pre-bid meeting. However, they declined to submit a bid. While staff was evaluating the bids, it was determined that the contractor's bid did not meet the WIFIA Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Good Faith Effort requirement. This is a requirement by the EPA for the WIFIA funding program. Because it did not meet that requirement and was not responsive, if we were to award this contract to Yellow Jacket, that this portion of the project would not be eligible for the WIFIA funding. For that reason, staff is recommending to reject the Yellow Jacket bid. With the rejection of the bid, staff has 2 options to propose. The first being to re-advertise the contract for bid. The second being to add scope to an existing contract via change order. If we're to re-advertise, this would extend the construction impacts to the residents on Cocoa Palms who are currently have a road closure and drilling being performed on site. This would extend the overall construction schedule for the Pure Water program, as well as we would not know the anticipated bids that would come in. We could receive 0, a few more than we did this time. We could also be facing the same stance that we are of not having responsive bids. If we were to add scope to the existing contract with a change order, this would allow us to have concurrent injection and monitoring well drilling. This would compact our construction schedule, minimize the impacts to the residents in the area, as well as the proposed cost received via the change order is lower than the engineer estimate as well as the bid that was received. With that, staff is recommending to add the scope to the existing contract via a change order to NorCal Pump and Well Drilling. This would bring the total contract value to $4,428,068. And with that, staff is also recommending to increase the city engineer's authorized signing authority for change orders to 10% of that revised contract value, which would bring it to $442,807. Staff has consulted with the city attorney's office as well as the Environmental Protection Agency to ensure that this method does meet all of our public contract code requirements as well as our funding requirements. With the change order, this would lead, or the current available balance for this final phase of work for Pure Water is $1,053,963, with the total estimated construction costs for the monitoring wells of $833,800, requiring no additional appropriation into the account. The project is funded by the EPA WIFIA loan as well as developer fees. And with that, staff is recommending to reject all the bids for the construction of Pure Water Oceanside monitoring wells contract, authorize the city engineer to execute change order number 1 for a total revised contract of $4,428,068, and authorize the city engineer to execute change orders up to 10% of that total revised contract value. I'm available for questions.
Mr. Navarro, do we have any public?
No public.
Councilmember Sanchez?
I forgot I had it on. Isn't that good? Thank you. And I did get a chance to discuss this item with Ms. Dale, and I appreciate the time. Obviously, this is a very specialized skill, and to have just one bid come in and it not fulfill all the requirements, we're actually lucky that the existing contract that we have is able to get into this, and we're able to not waste the time that's critical. And my conversation was also about subsidence. You mentioned subsidence, and I have a little bit of knowledge about that because I did have a chance to tour the Delta and was, provided some background information on why it got to the point of being so disastrously, at risk, and how much money it's going to cost to fix it and all of that. So for me, subsidence is a big issue for Oceanside, and it's a very, very critical project that we ensure that we're putting water back in, the right amount of water, that we're not going to have any kind of, subsidence kind of issues. This aquifer is very, very critical to our region, to City of Oceanside. And I also wondered if at some point we would be able to get specialized training as we go forward in the project, once everything is permitted, and it's all been approved, and it's, in action. And so I'm excited about that too. So we are basically pioneers in this with our Pure Water project, and I think that we're really lucky to have the staff that we have on this, pushing us forward to being as independent as possible for our water needs for our city. Move approval. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
We'll go to item 14, which is approval of purchase and sale agreement with the Oceanside School District for the property at 3131 Oceanside Boulevard.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. Kyle Koger, Public Works Director for the City of Oceanside. Tonight, we're here to talk about a purchase and sale agreement for property at 3131 Oceanside Boulevard. Thank you. Staff recommends that the City Council approve a purchase and sale agreement with the Oceanside Unified School District in the amount of $1.83 million for the purchase of the property at 3131 Oceanside Boulevard for potential use for various general purpose city services. Authorize the budget appropriations in an amount not to exceed $1.88 million for acquisition of real property and due diligence expenditures. Authorize the city manager to execute the agreement upon receipt of all supporting documents. Authorize the city clerk to accept the grant deed for the property, and authorize staff to open escrow and consummate the closing of the transaction. So the OUSD brought this to our attention in December of 2019, that they had some surplus property that was available for purchase. The site is the former Ocean Shores High School. It's a 3.5 acre site, has 3 permanent buildings and 3 modular buildings. The property is zoned public, semi-public, and the general plan designation is civic institutional. The property is now being leased from by the city for the temporary fire station number 3. The property is centrally located and could potentially support various general purpose city services, which are yet to be determined. In February of this year, staff was authorized by the council to enter negotiations with the district for acquisition of the property. Per council's direction, the city responded to the district with a letter of interest to purchase the property at fair market value, subject to an appraisal and completion of various due diligence investigations. Here's a map of the site. It's near the corner of Oceanside Boulevard and El Camino Real. An appraisal was performed earlier in the year and came back with a value of $1.47 million. The city made an offer to the district at that price, subject to council approval. The OUSD countered with an offer of $1.95 million. And negotiations went back and forth for a while, and both parties settled on the amount of $1.83 million. Council subsequently directed staff to bring the public purchase and sale agreement before council in open session for approval, as well as continue completing the remaining property investigations. Per the proposed purchase and sale agreement, due diligence expenditures shouldn't exceed $50,000 and will include a review of title, preparation of a land survey, obtaining a building condition assessment, completion of a phase 1 environmental site assessment, and completion of an asbestos study. Terms and condition of the acquisition are a purchase price of $1.83 million, opening of escrow to occur within 3 business days from approval of the agreement by council, a refundable escrow deposit of $10,000, and city will have until the end of February of next year to complete the due diligence of the property, and then escrow would close no later than 31 days after the end of February in the end of March. Some of the possible uses that the city might use this property for are relocation of the code enforcement from its current location to allow for construction of Fire Station Number 1, establishment of a city vehicle fuel station to serve the western portion of the city, an emergency shelter with wraparound services to be operated by a nonprofit partner, or relocation of the police training room from John Landis Park. Any of these uses would be subject to approval of a conditional use permit by the Planning Commission, which would be considered during future public hearings. In the event the city decides on an emergency shelter for the property, it would first conduct an extensive public outreach process to share the proposal and solicit community feedback. Funding for the acquisition would be provided through the assigned infrastructure account, which has a current balance of $6.1 million. With that, staff recommends that you approve the agreement and allow us to start escrow. And that's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. Vicki Gutierrez, our real estate manager, was not able to be here tonight. I believe she's on the phone if they have any questions I can't answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Navarro, public?
No public on this item.
Councilman Rodriguez.
Very good. Thank you for that presentation. I think this is, you guys can hear me? Okay. I think this property presents a lot of opportunity, but at a high ticket price. In representing the taxpayers of Oceanside, I think it's in the best interest of the city that we not only investigate the property through our contingency period, which I believe is 90 days. I would like to modify staff's recommendations that staff is to come back to council within 60 days and to, in essence, prepare a report on the viability and feasibility of the uses that you listed, which I think are great uses, and in essence, a plan and an estimated cost to the city if we were to pursue any of those options. I think when moving forward on a purchase, there's a pretty generic statement in here. I think it's in our best interest as a part of the contingency period to really dig into the viability of any of these options and what that would look like so that we're not buying a property just to hold and just to sit and not knowing the plan, the feasibility, the costs. I think it's just in this council's best interest to really comprehend what would be the highest and best use and benefit to the city of that property as a part of the due diligence process, not just, let's do some inspections and establish, some basics. I know when, as a city, we've been talking, we just got through with campaign season, we've been having a lot of conversations about an emergency shelter and wraparound services and those sort of dynamics. I personally would like to see that as a top option for this location. Obviously, the public process needs to take its course, but do we have zoning issues? Do we have environmental issues with that option or any of the other options? And then I think with the shelter dynamic, we can utilize some of our in lieu fees from the development community versus our infrastructure account, and save that money in our infrastructure account. So I just think it's in our best interest to have staff over the next 60 days, prepare some reports, prepare some information, prepare a plan and a cost estimate on these different options before we spend $2 million on a property. So that's, I would like to hear what my colleagues have to say, but I would like to modify this to incorporate that as a part of the contingency period before purchasing the property.
Councilmember Sanchez?
Thank you. There's definite need for this property. We've actually been leasing it while we prepare the fixings of our fire station, and this property is absolutely something that we need to have. We have been expanding. We have Fire Station 1 that is going to require removal of several offices, city offices. Perhaps this could also be part of the project. Yes, for me, a shelter is a high priority. I am actually satisfied that staff has done its due diligence and has actually, looked at the different potential uses of this land. I would like to see staff put this as a priority in terms of moving forward and what we can do here, but I don't feel that it's necessary for the motion. I would actually make the motion that we approve staff's recommendation and ask staff to move on this and, give us information about what is best. I know internally staff has been working on this. Every single department has been going to city manager and making their pitch about what is absolutely the highest need. And so that is what usually happens. And in order to do that, to sell, the actual end use that will finally be picked is something that is taken very seriously internally. So I feel that with that, give us some information about that this internal stuff that happens regardless and has been happening all these years, and move approval. Thank you.
Councilmember Kime?
I think the due diligence would be important, but we've been doing this for 9 months. I don't understand why we're asking after we've already begun the process. We're finally coming here. We could have asked for that to be done 8, 9 months ago. Could we have had that information back to us by now if those requests had been made prior?
Councilmember Kime, Mayor, and council members. We have some information, but some of the items such as conducting the more detailed building assessment, assessing costs for improvements, we haven't embarked on since there's a cost to the city to do those studies. And we wanted to have a clear public direction to pursue the purchase before we undertook those additional due diligence items.
Okay. The request from Councilmember Rodriguez, is that feasible to do that in 90 days? 60?
So I would think by February 3rd council meeting, we should be able to put together some information. I don't know for sure how long it will take to do some of these studies, but we can do our best to provide information by February 3rd if that's the direction of the majority of council.
Okay, thank you.
My issue with it is I'm okay with getting that information to us within 60 days if you can. I'm not necessarily concerned about having it come back in a public forum. I would like to have enough time that if there are issues, concerns, or constraints that you identify, that we do have enough time to have something formally in front of the council prior to that 90 days. So I'm more concerned, I think it'd be more effective just to get us in a pass-through memo. So if there's something significant, we can say, put it on the agenda. And then with that, I would second the motion. Councilmember Rodriguez?
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page. It's kind of a waste of staff's time, Councilmember Kime, to ask them to do due diligence on a property that we don't even have a contract. We're in a position now that we have an acquisition price, and so now it makes sense. So just to answer your concerns on that. And so when you move on a purchase, this is a almost $2 million purchase, it's important that we generally assess. We're not talking about outsourcing to a consultant to do this giant feasibility study, but we can, from a 30,000 foot perspective, say, you know what, this idea probably won't work. Let me let council know, okay, this idea will work, but here's the obstacles. And we can generalize it so that we're equipped, through a memo is fine, to be able to say, you know, I think we're in a better position. We're representing the taxpayers of Oceanside on the plan with this property versus just buying it and then, you know, months down the line, we come back with this. So this is just about being proficient. So I support Mayor Weiss's modified motion of a memo and to identify any concerns with respect to the property before the contingency period is up.
Councilmember Kime?
I also support the mayor. I think it's just, we need to communicate with staff instead of springing these things at the last minute. And when we have these different options, whether it's a shelter or code enforcement, those are things we could have a broad outline brought to us already. And so I think this is a pattern of coming to council with some new twists and not giving anyone notice that I disagree with. But I second the mayor's motion as well.
Second, Esther. So, yeah, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion second and third.
Motion approved, 5-0.
With that, Mr. Navarro, we'll go to off-agenda public comments.
On public comments, we have 4 speakers that signed up by 4 o'clock today. I believe we have some of them on the line. Our first speaker is Kathleen Lippett, to be followed by Joan Bachman, to be followed by Peggy Walker. And we are getting Miss Lippett on the line right now. She ready? She's not on? Miss Lippett, if you could unmute yourself. All right, Ms. Lippett, we're going to go to Joan Bachman, and then we'll come back to you. Joan, whenever you're ready, you could go.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, council, mayor, and staff. Joan Bachman, president of Friends of El Corazon. As you know, the people of Oceanside care greatly about open space and the future of our city. El Corazon is a major component of the realization of our city's future. During the pandemic, our parks and trails have become vital resources for many residents to get outside for their physical and mental health. I see this regularly all over town. We were dismayed to learn of the negotiations to sell some of the El Corazon land. You've received emails and calls from our members regarding this. This is a complex issue, and we fear that not all the important factors are being considered. We ask you to halt negotiations while our 4 requests are being moved forward. We request that El Corazon be put on this agenda for a public workshop with the council for a staff update to cover finances, oversight, and the possible sale of land. We request a full financial plan for the entire park that is defined on a long-term timeline. This must include that all revenue generated on El Corazon stays on El Corazon. We request that El Corazon be officially designated as parkland. We request that the public use of the park is addressed and an oversight committee is formed to oversee park development. The current system with the EDC has failed and did not address key issues in recent reviews. We had to bring those up. The negotiations for a possible sale must be transparent, a transparent process, and the citizens of Oceanside must be aware of what is considered on their land in their park that belongs to them. Thank you.
All right. Our next speaker is Kathleen Lippett, and we're going to ask you to unmute yourself, and then whenever you're ready, you could go.
I am ready. Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'd like to share some local data from Sandag. This information should be of interest to all of us, not just those of us in public health, research, prevention, education, or publicly elected officials who strive to serve their community and not special interests. The data is intended to guide policy decisions, but the growing marijuana influence is very concerning as it undermines the most important foundations of society: youth development, success, health, academia, and supportive environments in which for children to grow. Society is grappling with the increased addiction due to the stress of isolation, boredom, and decreased access to recovery resources during COVID complications. Prioritizing and protecting children and families should outweigh growing marijuana businesses. Unfortunately, the 2019 juvenile arrestee report for the San Diego region are red flag indicators that this is not the case. Whatever tax revenues the city may hope to collect cannot possibly be worth the harms being done to our youth. The data has been tracked and collected so policymakers can know what works to prevent crime and improve the quality of life. These 20 years of data in the categories of greatest concern for youth are all going in the wrong direction. I'd like to share a few of those highlights. Youth are testing positive for at least one substance of abuse at a 20-year high. Over 3/4 of youth interviewed report vaping nicotine and marijuana, the same products that you're allowing to be manufactured and sold. 18% of juveniles report suicidal ideation, and 3/4 of youth reported marijuana as their first substance of abuse in 2007. I'm sorry, that was 34% of youth reported marijuana their first substance of abuse in 2007, and in 2019, it was 58%. Fewer than 1 in 5 youth now feel marijuana is harmful to users. I appreciate your time, and I hope that you will consider this when you are making your decisions about permitting marijuana shops in your city or the cultivation or manufacturing. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Peggy Walker, to be followed by Becky Rapp. And whenever you're ready, Ms. Walker, you're free to go. If you could unmute yourself, Ms. Walker. Okay. Is Becky on the line?
Unmute.
Okay. All right.
There we go.
All right, you're on.
Okay, great. Good evening, Council. The previous speaker addressed marijuana, and I would like to address that as well. I wish to ask you as policymakers to follow a trend suggested and endorsed by the medical and scientific communities. That is to enact protective policy regarding THC potency in marijuana products produced and sold in the city. Today's high-potency marijuana is addictive, linked with serious mental health illnesses such as anxiety, depression, and psychosis, and it lowers educational outcomes for those who use it heavily. The American Society of Addiction Medicine has just called on the State Bureau of Cannabis Control, the BCC, to enact policy to limit THC potency in light of increasing adverse health effects of high-potency products. As a youth drug use prevention and public health educator, I hope that you will do the same to benefit the residents of our city. Caps on THC potency will not stop sales, but they will help decrease harmful outcomes of use. Health experts consider that THC potency above 15% classifies as a hard drug. Yet the average potency for weed today is 19.6%, and for edible and vape products marketed directly to young users, THC potency is as high as 95%. A slew of data shows dramatic increases in youth and young adult use of high-potency marijuana products. Rates of marijuana-impaired driving are rising, and ER rates linked to marijuana use issues have reached 29 per day in San Diego County. Considering this data, we need to take a serious look at the potency of products sold in our cities and take steps to cap the content. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Becky Rapp.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Becky Rapp. I'm a mother and youth group mentor here to voice my concern for the increased use of marijuana among teens and adults. It is very important the council remain educated and aware of data surrounding marijuana use, as that data is constantly being updated. Cynthia Burke, Sandag's Director of Research and Program Management, reported on how youth's attitudes around marijuana have changed. The survey states that youth have become less concerned about any potential harmful effects. This sense of desensitization is concerning, as the survey states that 58% of youth said the first drug they tried was marijuana. It is no secret that our youth are home, feeling isolated and uncertain of their futures. They're suffering, and it shows in the emergency rooms. Dave King, Executive Director for San Diego Imperial Valley High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area, stated, "We are in the midst of a vaping epidemic. Emergency department visits and admissions for any related marijuana misuse has increased by 89%. Hospitals are seeing an average of 29 discharges a day due to marijuana, and it remains the primary drug of choice for youth ages 12 to 17 entering treatment. I urge you to take action in educating the community and start increasing awareness among youth and the negative effects of marijuana use." Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that concludes the public comment for off-agenda items.
Thank you. With that, we'll go to 17, which is the annual review and appointments for boards, commissions, and committees, and I move approval of my recommendations.
Second.
Councilmember Sanchez?
Thank you. Thank you. And I talked with staff regarding, the timing of this, because in 2 weeks, I will be sworn in as the new mayor of Oceanside. And usually it's in other cities. This happens with the person who is going to be acting as mayor for the following year. And I was reminded that the council majority 10 years ago, I think it was 10 years ago, decided to try to control our very popular Mayor Jim Wood from being able to bring forward recommendations as to who should serve in these very, very critical regional positions. And, I think it is time to undo some of the really kind of ugly stuff that happened in the past, where either the mayor or myself were targeted because of differences of opinions. We each bring forward a point of view. We each are elected by the public. It's a matter of 2 weeks. I don't know if I would be recommending this. I certainly would be requesting that I serve as the Sandag rep because I will be the mayor. And you look at Sandag, and mostly it is the mayors who are appointed to represent their cities, their individual cities. I'm really excited to be able to say that I know and I have a very good relationship with just about every single mayor and other members of the county, state, and federal. I'm very, very excited to be able to say that I feel that I can work with and be the best advocate on behalf of the city of Oceanside. So I am asking either for a continuance so that I can have a chance to bring forward and make the recommendations as the new mayor of Oceanside, or at least to be considered for the Sandag rep. This is something that should be the mayor. So I am asking either one of those two. Thank you.
There's no other lights. And my only comment is the city code has a provision in that during an election year, the mayor makes the appointments at the first meeting in December, and I believe in the off-election years, it is the second meeting.
Yeah, and if I could just, I had a discussion.
That is correct, under Chapter 2.
I had a discussion with our city attorney asking, this doesn't make sense. Why would that take place? And he reminded me it was to tie the hands of Jim Wood, and it was it was addressed to him. So that's what I started off by saying. It is the second meeting on an off-election year. That doesn't make sense. because, and it's a policy. Policies don't carry the weight of law at all.
It's not policy, it's city code.
It's a policy.
It's section 2.1.64 of the municipal code.
Councilmember Rodriguez?
Add that 2 weeks from now is not going to change the vote today. So whether we vote today or vote 2 weeks from now, it's the same result's going to happen.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion approved, 4-1. Sanchez, no.
Mr. Mullen?
Thank you. Item 18 is the second read and adoption of an ordinance of the City of Oceanside amending Chapter 29A of the Oceanside City Code to allow the use of floats for dinghy storage within a slip and to regulate the storage of dinghies outside a permitted slip.
Councilmember Sanchez?
Move adoption.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Mr. Mullen?
Thank you. Item 19 is the second read and adoption of an ordinance of the City of Oceanside amending the zoning designation for certain real property located at the northwest corner of Frazee Road and Old Grove Road from limited commercial and single-family residential to planned development, Rio Rockwell zone amendment.
I'll move approval. We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
And I know it's not his official last meeting, but I do want to thank Deputy Mayor Feller for his years of service to the community and to this council. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
I'd
So,
like to make some comments, too.
go ahead.
Are we at that?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, thank you. Yes, I also would like to congratulate Councilmember Feller for his 20 years of serving the public. Jack, you have been a real challenge. You've really challenged my skills. And I think that there have been times that I think that in our discussions and debate, we've actually come up with perhaps better solutions to some of the issues that have faced us over the years. I can think of several ones where it was just a lot of debate, and even in God we trust as one. So I thank you very much for years of service, and I hope that you're able to enjoy your family, which you have so many big family. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I did get a chance to review or watch the county's presentation on COVID today, expecting some kind of announcement because the numbers are getting higher. There was the CEO of Sharp Hospitals did speak and talk about how close we are to reaching capacity for hospital beds and ICU beds, but they feel that they have control and they're able to manage the situation.
You may want to ask him.
We have had now 1,035 people die from COVID-related in the county. In Oceanside, is it 40, Ms. Larson?
Councilmember Sanchez, Mayor, and council members, the county just put out their updated report. As of November 28th, we have 50 deaths in the city of Oceanside, approximately.
50. The message was, look, this is serious, and let's work together to make it out safely. But also the other message was the vaccines are coming, and we are coordinating, and we will be also storing, at least the county will be storing, and the county actually talked about shipments happening in December, 2 shipments within 3 weeks of each other, and the last doses to be hopefully distributed by, which would mean, because there's several you know, the most essential folks will be the first priority, and that would be the nursing homes and patients and workers, all the way through to everyone. And their date of March, April, where we would all have access to vaccines is something very aggressive. I thought it would be probably even beginning of the summer versus spring. So I'm really excited that we are finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and encouraging everyone to continue to, you know, use your masks when you go out. I don't know, I guess the governor may be coming out with some additional health orders tomorrow, but whatever we do, I did hear that the state is looking at doing some small business grants. So that's pretty exciting, especially for Oceanside businesses. Will be eligible for these, and they're actually grants, not loans. So I'm very, very excited about that. So going forward, I know that we're going to do everything that we can, including the food programs and everything possible. Please call staff, call me, call city council members if you have any questions or concerns as we go through hopefully the final month or two of the worst part of this COVID. Thank you.
And with that, we will adjourn to 12 o'clock Tuesday, December 15th for our swearing-in ceremony.